members, our esteemed guests, and dear students. I welcome you all to the session of Duilf University International Literature Festival 2026. Here, in today's session, our topic is mainly related to energy. As we all know, India is growing and balancing development and sustainability has become a real challenge. So, are we ready for the future of energy and what choices lie ahead? To help us explore this important and thoughtful provoking theme, the energy conundrum in India, we have our esteemed speakers with us along our side. So, without further delay, let us welcome our guest on the stage. Firstly, Sir Narendra Taneja, please give a big round of applause. Next, we have Sir Talmis Ahmed. And next, we have Sir Kingsuk Chatterjee. Starting with Taneja sir. Taneja sir is a known writer, thinker, and television commentator. He has just published his novel, Sabina. And then Narendra sir is a noted global thought leader on the policy, security, and geopolitics of energy. He is often cited as a powerful voice on the issues of energy and climate, especially in the context of the global north and the global south. He is a designated speaker fellow at the Oxford Institute of Energy Studies in Oxford, UK. He serves as the chairman to the Independent Energy Policy Institute, a think tank based in New Delhi. His area of research and expertise range from energy policy, transition, politics, and governance to energy security and associated climate issues. Next, we have Ahmed sir. He is a former Indian ambassador to Saudi Arabia, besides serving in Indian missions in several West Asian countries, the US and the UK. He has published 4 books. He also writes regularly in Indian and West Asian media and lectures on politics and economics of West Asia, Eurasia, and the Indian Ocean, politics, Islam, and energy security. In 2011, the Saudi government conferred on him the King Abdul Aziz Medal First Class for his contribution to the promotion of Indo-Saudi relations. Currently, he holds the Ram Satri Chair in International Studies, Symbiosis International University, Pune. Next, we have Chatterjee sir. He is a professor in the Department of History, Calcutta University. He has previously served in Sri Nagar University and United States Naval Academy in Maryland. Chatterjee sir's area of expertise is in Middle Eastern politics, and he specializes in the political Islam in the modern world, with particular reference to Iran. He is an author and editor of multiple volumes of Middle Eastern politics and India's relation with the Middle East. He is additionally a regular contributor to the Indian foreign policy and global politics across newspapers, periodicals, and academic journals. Along with this, I would also like to introduce our reportees for the session, Ms. Vishita Ran Neo and Ananya Bora, both are from English department. And now I would like to hand over the mic to you, sir.
Can you hear me? Yeah, this works. Well, thanks for the introduction. It's beautiful to see so many young faces and so many girls interested in energy. So that's really a very positive sign. And we're going to keep the language and the grammar and texture of our conversation in such a way so that all of you, each one of you can understand it. We'll keep it very simple, straight, so that because energy is a little bit complex, but we'll just try to keep it as simple as possible. And I'm also going to request my co-panelists here to be as brief as possible, ideas so that we can cover the subject as comprehensively as we can. You see, the topic given to us for this afternoon is energy, India's energy conundrum. Is so apt because that's precisely the kind of dilemma or the situation we are into. But that is not only India. In fact, 80% countries of the world are energy deficit, 80%. And though the United States is the biggest producer of energy in the world, they are also the biggest consumer, but yet when we meet American experts and policymakers on energy, they basically talk about the same dilemma as we do in India. And it's at some time I'm at loss to understand why is it like that, but they probably think the United States is bigger than the way, for instance, we look at the United States or perceive the United States. I was this morning got a copy of an article in Financial Times, British newspaper, a prominent article which says NATO officials saying, senior NATO officials, that Europe should treat energy security as defense policy. That's the article in Financial Times, where they want Europe to treat energy policy as defense policy. Question is, what does it mean? A, it means that energy is very important. B, also means that if you need to kind of fight to secure energy, your energy security, do that and be prepared for it. In fact, I was in a conversation not so long ago with the Deputy Director, the Secretary General of NATO was also present. We were on the same panel. And for me, the first shock was I didn't know that NATO has got a dedicated Secretary General, Deputy Secretary General, focusing only on energy. I didn't know that. And so for me, first it was a shock, and the second, of course, when we started having a conversation, I realized that how important actually energy has now become their overall security thinking. So when we talk of energy, what is energy? Energy means of course, that you have access to electricity, you have access to petrol, diesel, cooking gas cylinder, and fuel for your motor vehicles and so on. Look at our country. Today we are the third largest consumer of oil in the world. Third largest. We are the second largest importer of oil in the world, together with the United States. China number one, then America, India, more or less number two. And at the same time, when you look at this kind of dilemma we face, that there are people who say that we are now energy surplus, especially when it comes to electricity. Our installed capacity today is 500,000 megawatts. To be precise, 5,02,000 megawatts. That makes us electricity surplus. Yet there are millions and millions and millions across the country who don't have access to sufficient energy, mainly because they can't afford it. At the same time, look at our dependence on oil. We are today importing roughly 89% of our total requirement. Of course, that includes crude that we import, refine, and export. That's it. That's part of the story. Natural gas, roughly 56% we are importing today. We are coal surplus, yet we import because sometimes for power plants, located along the coast, because we think the economics was better that way. If you ship it, then you transport by train or other means of transport. So that's the kind of situation. And there are 4 billion energy poor on the planet. 4 billion. That's worth 50% population, energy poor. And 1 billion energy poor, when you look at it, live in our part of the world. India, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and western parts of Myanmar. 1 billion energy poor in our part of the world. Actually, many of them in our country. Energy poor means those who have very limited access to energy. Maybe one bulb, maybe one cooking gas, which is in most cases subsidized for these people, and 3 liters of petrol for scooty or whatever you want to use it for. Yet, if we need to grow at 9%, which we need, that means that we need more energy. So in terms of poverty, energy poverty, we are right on the top, together with some other countries, of course. So that's kind of roughly the scenario. So for us, on the one hand, that you all must have been reading that President Trump is telling India not to import oil from Russia. We've been buying oil from Russia because the economics were very attractive, simple. No politics, it's the economics. But Trump says, no, you can't do that. Is he president of India? But he thinks that he's president of the world, that's a different story. Now, the question is that, so those kind of pressures, diplomatic and political, economic pressures, I say economic because, impose 25% tariff on us for that. So that kind of situation. So energy is not simple thing. It's like onion, many layers. It's very complex, very complicated. So how do we navigate our way as a country? So what we're going to do is here on the panel that we have a very distinguished panel. You can see Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed. For me, he's first and foremost a scholar, a thought leader, and absolutely world-class writer, a world-class thinker. He's also been ambassador and all that. But the way I look at it is that here we've got an absolutely world-class thinker on international issues with particular focus on geopolitics and energy. And, and then we have Professor Chatterjee from Calcutta University. We'll be discussing about Calcutta University and overall academic scene in Calcutta. I have not met him before, I'm being very honest, but I'm looking forward to discover more of Professor Chatterjee, especially in terms of his interest in the Middle Eastern region. We are Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed has served for many years, twice actually as ambassador to Saudi Arabia, which is rare that you're sent to the same country twice. And I'm also, I go to Middle East quite often, and I've been to almost, I like to say I've been to almost all major oil fields and gas fields across the Middle East. And I love that part of the world. It's beautiful. Tradition, great food, great culture, lovely people, and the fact that we have got this historical relationship with that part of the world. Now, energy has become the main bridge. Energy today is the golden bridge that connects India and Saudi Arabia. That's why I'm very optimistic about India-Middle East economic corridor. The idea may have come from the West, but I see a lot of potential in that, and I think we should keep the seeds that have been planted. I think it's important to keep watering those plants because someday, hopefully, it will work. So let me start with Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed. If I may just start with one question, and then please feel free to expand on it or add on this thing. When you look at India's energy dilemma, conundrum, the kind of situation we are into, but if we see it realistically, President Trump telling us don't buy energy from country X or country Y, in a way dictating energy policy on us, and actually try to trust his views on India. At the same time, we are energy deficit. Our dependence on oil is only going to grow. This 89% is going to go up to about 93% and very, very soon. And we are a democratic country. Our economy needs more energy, more oil, more gas, more all that. How do you look at the scenario today? First, as a thinker on energy issue, and B, as an Indian. When somebody who's not our president tells us that you should not be importing energy from that country or this country, what's your reaction? How do you feel? And what should we do?
You must have seen that we use the term energy security. That means energy is a crucial factor in national security issues. All of you are familiar with the term national security. You think of your borders being secure, of stability and peace within the country. But there is something more than that, and that is energy. energy is the crucial fuel that runs our economy. Coal, oil, gas, renewables, hydropower, all these are primary sources of energy. And a country can be prosperous and develop to the extent required only if it has the requisite energy. Therefore, when we use the term energy security, what we are referring to is a nation that has access to energy at affordable prices and is able to provide energy to meet the minimum requirements of its poorest people. So there are three factors in energy security. There is the availability, there should be acceptable prices, and that you should generate enough energy to meet the minimum requirements of your people, of your masses. That means people who are the poorest in your country should have access to energy so that they are able to maintain a minimally dignified life. India is overwhelmingly dependent on fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are coal, oil, and gas. These, between them, in our energy mix, constitute over 80% of our energy consumption in our country. We are also energy poor in the sense that coal is our principal part of our energy mix, over 50%. We produce most of it, but we have been mining coal over a long period of time. As a result, the quality of the coal has gone down and it produces a lot of carbon monoxide. So we have started importing high quality coal, which we mix with the low quality coal we have in order to get more calorific value, which is why we have become importers of coal as well. Oil, we are dependent, as Mr. Tareja said, to the extent of 80 to 90% of our needs are met by imports, underlying imports. And this is similar for our gas needs. About 40 to 50% of our needs are met by imports. Now, this is where we are. In this scenario, Donald Trump says to us that thou shalt not do this. It is like God has given us commandments through Moses. This is not acceptable to India. Recall that from 1947 till today, India has asserted autonomy of action, freedom of choice. When we fought for our freedom, we were shrugging off colonialism because that used to control our choices. They would determine our choices. So when we became free and we found ourselves in the midst of the Cold War, the Indian leadership, we were then under pressure. The same pressure that is being exerted upon us today was exerted upon us from 1947 onward, when the Americans said that we should join their alliance and become part of the Western alliance against godless communism led by the Soviet Union. And our leadership at that time stated very simply that we did not fight for our freedom in order to enslave ourselves to somebody else, mortgage our ability to take decisions to somebody else. This has been consistent. Very rarely has India been pressurized and succumbed to something that was not in its interest or that its leadership had resisted. The source of pride that we have in our country and the sense of determination, a sense of personal dignity that we have is because of this factor. We have not been a rich country. At the time in 1947, we had extremely low annual growth, extremely poor industry, etc. But we had determination and a sense of self-confidence and a sense in our own destiny. From where did this emerge? This emerged from our sense of a united people that were part of the legacy of an ancient civilization that has been constantly nourished. And this is why we were able, despite the trauma of partition, despite our very parlous economic situation, despite the pervasive poverty of our people, we were still self-confident enough to tell the Americans this is not acceptable to us. And they took their revenge. Let me be very clear. You don't buy freedom for cheap. Pakistan became a part of the Western Alliance. Its armed forces were entirely equipped by the American military equipment. Pakistan got diplomatic support from the Western Alliance and the United Nations on Kashmir. Pakistan was supported in terms of its military confrontations against us in 47, 48, 65, 71. It has been armed to the teeth by the Western Alliance. Even when they began terrorism against us, no Western country ever attacked Pakistan and supported India because we had refused to join their alliance. And yet we came out of it well and we are doing well. Now Donald Trump has said that he has got an agenda. The agenda is to ensure Western hegemony. Western hegemony over world affairs has been in place for at least a century and a half possibly. That hegemony appears to be under threat. That is what is a matter of concern in European capitals and in Washington. That this hegemony that they took for granted over all these decades is today could be challenged. It is challenged not just by China, which obviously has emerged as a major economic, military, and technological power. A very large number of other countries have also achieved this. Countries that were poverty-stricken, that had low development, etc., are today in the vanguard of regional affairs, at least, if not world affairs. That this empowerment of smaller countries that had not been empowered earlier is known as a multipolar world order. So what we are looking at are the green shoots of a possible multipolar world order challenging Western hegemony. Are the Western powers going to roll over and go to sleep and allow this change to take place? Certainly not. They are willing to use military force to ensure this does not happen. They are willing to use threats. They are willing to use blackmail. Do recall here that the Ukraine war was deliberately imposed upon Russia by the eastward movement of the West in terms of NATO's empowerment all across the borders of Russia. That is a deliberately imposed war. Secondly, you will find that the Americans extended full support to the Israelis in the recent Gaza war and ensured that every American enemy was obliterated in this region. Please remember that this is not just a peaceful transition. This is lethal. This is destructive. This is violent. And this is at our doorstep. Now you have another problem before you. How do you handle a problem like Donald Trump? It is very easy to roll over and do nothing. American military might is very well recognized. Its capacity for destruction is extremely well known. Are we therefore going to succumb to this? The considered view that many of us have, who are former practitioners and recent commentators on Indian foreign policy, is that this is not acceptable. That India should not bow to the kind of pressure being exerted upon us. Because unless you draw the line in the face of a bully, there is no limit to the demands he or she will make, isn't it? That's our personal life experience. This is going to be a political experience as well. Do remember, unless you draw the line with Donald Trump now, he's going to make another demand tomorrow. He's got a very vague megalomaniacal agenda that is so desperate to win the Nobel Prize that he's going to impose other conditions upon us. So my answer to you, Chairman, is to say this is not acceptable. It is not acceptable to India. It is not acceptable in terms of our legacy. It is not acceptable in terms of the traditions that have shaped Indian options from 1947.
Thank you. Thank you very much for, elaborating and explaining in quite details. The strategic autonomy for India is sacrosanct. And I think, as Ambassador Tanveer has said, I think it's important for Western capitals to understand, look, there are going to be no compromise with that. Strategic autonomy irrespective of who is in power in New Delhi. Never ever there would be any compromise, or what we call in Hindi, Samrik Asmita. No compromise on that. I think that's what the West needs to understand. If I may turn to Professor Chatterjee, when you look at the history of energy, first oil well was drilled not far from here, Big Bud. How many of you know that the first oil well, not only in India, in Asia, happened here, very close to this town? How many of you know? Well, that's good. And where the name Big Boy comes from? How many of you know?
You know the big one?
Big Boy? Big Boy Day?
Big boy.
Yeah? You know that? How many of you? Wonderful. So the story of oil, or energy for the matter, actually started from eastern part of India. And you guys are very lucky, those who live in Dibrugarh, actually started from your land. Not only for India, the Asian story. Oil was discovered in Assam long before it was discovered in Saudi Arabia or in Iran or in any other parts of the Middle East. Do you know that? How privileged, how blessed you are. You understand it? Secondly, that's why I'm bringing this point to Professor Chatterjee. First city to get electricity, which we take for granted. Can you name the city? First Indian city to get electricity? Okay. थोड़ा सा hint देता हूँ. He comes from their city. Now, can you name it? First Indian city to get electricity. Okay, another. Mamta ji is the chief minister. She lives there. Is that enough? Okay, so the story of energy, the Indian story of energy, actually started from the east, from Assam and Bengal. Assam and Bengal are basically all about energy. Yet, look at the tragedy. I'm using the word tragedy very carefully. Per capita energy consumption today in India is lowest in the eastern part. The area, the region that basically wrote the story of energy in this country, the first author. That's what it is. So it's not only dilemma, conundrum, actually a tragedy. It depends how you look at the story and what part of India you're located. Professor Chatterjee, you're based in Calcutta. The story started from your city, your take. Of course, India's energy conundrum, and since you specialize on the Middle East, floor is yours.
I think I'm on hold, yeah, okay. Despite being a historian, let me leave that part of history out which involves Calcutta in the way Mr. Taneja went about it. Calcutta was electrified first, or rather, the first grid began from Calcutta simply because it was the capital of British India. And thankfully, it has nothing to do with Mumbai. The story of energy usage in India, it's much of a mixed thing because initially when you had street lamps being lit by kerosene, that used to come from Russia, and with the discovery of oil in Iran by a British outfit which went about exploring with the Darcy concessions, exports began from 1913. What is relevant for us is that right from 1913, Iran and then oil fields of the northern side of the Gulf have been our standard catchment areas of energy procurement. That and Burma, which is where your Burma Shell, which later becomes British Petroleum, it comes. So India was in the let's say the Asiatic theatre of the British Empire, India played a very important role in terms of the energy flow. And by the 1920s, late 1920s, as the American companies begin to explore the southern side of the Gulf, India was buying its crude from, in fact, we were buying the crude and getting it refined by American companies. So it is absolutely true that we were the first to be electrified, but we were also borrowing our energy, we were importing our energy from the very beginning. So energy security in 1947 has had an additional dimension. If you compare India and China, one of the things India was handicapped by was that we were buying almost every ounce of energy that we were consuming. China went about importing only from the 1980s. So we had an oil pool deficit for a very long time. It played havoc on our currency. China was spared that. Okay, so energy security, there's this one dimension I thought we should throw in the mix, is that it's not simply buying how much energy you can buy, it is how economically you can buy it. And because India had that problem of its foreign currency in terms of an oil pool deficit, India had historically been buying the lousiest quality of crude. So we were buying the heaviest crude, we were buying the more sulfurous crude. Simply put, we need to spend more in refining it. But over a period of time, in doing this, we were buying the trashiest crude and we were refining it, and today we are one of the leading refinery technology, we hold one of the leading technology capabilities in the world. So it is really a mixed bag. It's not a story of all glory, and nor is it a story of all dependence. And that is all energy security. It's all about you need to make your energy consumption, however, sustainable. So as Mr. Preneja was saying, the quality of our coal quarrying is deteriorating. We are buying stuff. So that we are buying stuff, we are importing is not bad. The thing is, at what cost are we buying? And what is the most important thing is, are we taking the decisions as a sovereign country? Or are we being told what to do and we are just following it without looking at the repercussions? We are cross now that we have been told that we can't buy from Russia. Russia gives us huge amounts of crude, not very good quality, but at huge discount. We are feeling offended, but we are willing to sort of wallow over, feeling sorry for ourselves, but it seems, if it's not the wrong expression, we beg when we are asked, we grovel when we are asked to beg, most of the time. We never heard a murmur, in a sense, when the Iran import was stopped. Importing from Iran has been one of our steadiest suppliers, and Indian refineries are equipped for processing that kind of crude, that quality of crude. We can process very well, which makes it economic. Iran also, because of the sanctions, not many countries are willing to buy Iranian crude, so Iran gives it at a high discount. And the moment America says, you stop buying from Iran, we stop it. And we don't even complain. Only when America says, you stop buying from Russia, that's when we start complaining. There are lots of angles in this. I am in total agreement with my two co-panelists that we should be exercising our sovereign discretion in buying from whoever we think it is best to buy. But believe me, it is never as simple as that. There are reasons why these decisions, once imposed on us, you accept, and those I think we should now bring in the mix.
Thank you very much, Professor Chatterjee. You see, both my co-panelists, Ambassador and Professor Chatterjee, multiple times referred to a term called energy security. Energy security. But it's also one of the very few terms used globally all the time, which actually has different meaning for different countries. Energy security for us, since we are hugely energy deficit, for us, energy security means securing supply to make sure that energy is available. Oil, gas, equipment for solar power, coal to some extent, and even uranium. So first, when we talk of energy security, in any room for us means is securing supply, period. Now, move to Saudi Arabia. What does energy security mean there? Anyone in the room? Anyone? What does energy security mean for a major oil exporter or oil superpower Saudi Arabia? Securing demand. Same term has a different meaning. For them, their economy is so heavily dependent on oil that they want to make sure that world doesn't switch over to renewables overnight. That's not going to happen. That's a different story. But for them, that's what energy security is all about. At the same time, if you think that if you're blessed with abundant, let's say, resource of the hydrocarbon, oil and gas, that you are lucky, you've done it, you're going to have a great future. The largest oil reserves in the world are with Venezuela. Largest. And yet, Venezuela as today is among the poorest countries in the world. America recently moved in there for oil. Now the question is that, a country that has potential to produce 9 million barrels of oil every day, heavy oil, nevertheless, but 9 million barrels potential, without much investment, is producing only 850,000 barrels a day. Only 850,000. Why? Because though they have been so generously blessed by nature, there have been all kind of other issues, including foreign intervention, ideological direction, misgovernance, corruption, and it's a long story. So the question is that for us, a country like us, home to 1.4 billion people, hugely energy deficit, heavily dependence on imports, even for renewable energy when it comes to solar in particular. We import roughly 76% total requirement of panels and cells and equipment for solar power generation. And that too from China. Very vulnerable. So what then is the whole situation means? The situation basically means that, look, we have to first, of course, accept it, then we have to work around it. And as the government of India now is trying to do, at least talking a lot about it, is that we want to achieve energy independence. Means that we bring down our dependence on imports to the extent possible. It's never going to be zero for any country for that matter, but to the extent possible. So energy independence. Now in such a scenario, how do we get about energy independence? So I'm going to ask my co-panelists, and I'll request both of them to be brief so that then we'll have question and answer with you. So please keep your questions ready. And those who ask the best question is going to get a free ride to Big Boy from me. So then you can see the first bell. Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed, energy independence, dream or achievable?
Energy independence is a slogan used by politicians. It gives people the impression that there could be one golden period where you will no longer import your energy requirements. There is not a single country in the world that is energy independent. Not even the United States, which is producing so much oil and gas. So energy independence is a mirage. What is not a mirage is securing the supplies that you need. So countries all over the world ensure that they have diversity of supplies so that they don't depend on just one country or one region. We have had, for example, the bulk of our oil imports comes from comes from the Gulf. So the 6 countries of the GCC provide 50% of our requirements. And we've talked a lot about diversifying away from the Gulf. But it has not actually happened. On the contrary, our dependence on the Gulf has increased. If you were to, at the golden age earlier, when we were importing both from Iran and Iraq, about 70 to 80% of our needs were being met from the Gulf. And the Gulf is seen to be conflict prone. We faced one serious problem, and that was in 1990 when Iraq occupied Kuwait and the United Nations imposed sanctions on the sale of both the countries, oil of both the countries. India overnight lost the 2 principal suppliers of oil to us. We used to get 6 million tons from Iraq and 4 million tons from Kuwait. It stopped. Overnight it stopped. Then India started diversifying the purchase of oil from various Gulf countries and looked at other countries as well. So we now get from every country. Saudi Arabia came forward in 1990. At that time, it was very dramatic, and I was personally present on this occasion. If I may share with them an interesting anecdote, we were not buying from Saudi Arabia. In 1990, we had, when Iraq occupied Kuwait, 180,000 Indians were trapped in Kuwait. And the government of India needed quickly to get them liberated and brought home. Our foreign minister, Mr. I.K. Gujral, at that time, visited Iraq and was embraced by Saddam Hussein. And this caused a lot of tension all across the Gulf. And that is where we needed the oil from. So a delegation was sent to the region, and the team came to Saudi Arabia. I was present at the time when they called on the oil minister. And the whole previous night we wondered what the Saudis would demand from us in return for supplying oil to us. So we thought that they would ask us to write a statement condemning the occupation of Kuwait, condemning Saddam Hussein, condemning Iraq. And we were wondering what language to use. And we prepared numerous drafts. Next day morning, when we waited in the oil minister's office, the minister entered the room, and as we were standing to greet him, he made one announcement. His Majesty the King has ordered me to meet all of India's oil requirements. No conditions imposed upon us. So Saudi Arabia became the principal supplier of oil to us at that time, and remains even today, though it's not 25%, 17%. And we have since then diversified from other sources. From time to time, we even import from Colombia, we import from Angola, Nigeria, and we import from Venezuela also. Venezuela has heavy oil. We have the technology for that, supplied by Venezuela, and we import that. We have very good refining capacity. So I would say the first thing that countries do is to diversify the supplies. Second thing the countries do is to ensure that they use the energy they have much more efficiently. That is the function of technology. As you know, the cars have now improved in terms of technology. You have engines that give you a greater mileage for the oil that you put in. So cars are a very good example. Almost all the electricity equipment that you use at home is now much more economical as compared to earlier times. So energy efficiency is considered a very important factor in ensuring your energy independent. It's not energy independent, but ensuring the best use of your resources. Do remember that import of energy is an extremely expensive proposition and is one of the largest items that we charge on our budget. So the country has to be very careful that we use the item properly. The third thing we do is refining. We are one of the great refiners of the world. Crude oil as it stands is not usable. it has to be refined. So it goes into the refinery, and in the refinery it is heated and it is distilled. Depending on the quality of the oil, you get the quality of the product. As you get superior qualities are used in various industry, they are used as fuel in the aerospace sector. And as you go right down, you have finally kerosene, which is the lowest form of fuel that you get. So you get a whole range of distillates in the refinery. When you have better quality of oil, you can go in for petrochemicals and produce plastics, which again is very lucrative. India is a very major importer of crude oil, but a very major exporter of oil product, because we have very good refining facilities in our country. These are some of the ways in which we import. Sometimes what happens is some countries give you oil at a discount. This is not announced. It's not publicly stated that we are selling to you below the market price. But when Iraq's conflict ended and they wanted India to become a major buyer of Iraqi oil, they gave us a line of credit that you don't have to pay for this oil for 3 months. 3 months you buy the oil, refine it, sell the product, and then you pay for the original crude. Iran was also giving us that facility. So buying discounted oil is a very major element in ensuring that you use your resources to the best extent possible. Finally, Russian oil. Please remember here that Russian oil is of course a very important political decision, but Russian oil is available to us at discounted prices. So we save billions of dollars every month buying Russian oil. Also remember that India-Russia energy ties go back several decades. India is a very major investor in the Russian energy sector. It's not that we are getting free oil and we are getting it is our oil, as Mr. Taneja has insisted in a very dramatic statement that India invested in the Russian energy sector. That oil is ours already because we paid for it. So for us now to have someone else, it's a double whammy, as they say, that you get two blows. You are forced to buy oil at market prices from alternative sources, and you have to deny yourself the oil that belongs to you in order to appease the maniac in the White House. These are all the challenges that Mr. Taneja has spoken about, and this is how India has been very effectively combating combating these challenges and ensuring that our best interests are served.
You see, being a moderator, I try to speak as little as possible and give maximum time to my co-panelists. But to add to what Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed said, the funny part, we have invested, India has invested $70 billion in oil and gas assets in Russia. The story started in 2002 with a project called Sakhalin-1, which is a major offshore project in eastern Russia. It started from there, and before that, of course, the India's most prolific and still the largest producing oil field is called Bombay High, near Bombay. We invited American geologists and experts to help us find oil in our offshore. Americans came here, and within no time they said, "Don't waste your time, don't waste your money, you have no oil in Indian offshore." They went back home. Death certificate signed, no oil. We invited Russians, and we discovered oil. The rest is history. So, when you look at India's domestic production, bulk of this production is coming from the oil field Russians helped us to discover that. It's still India's #1 oil field, Bombay High. Secondly, now Americans are saying that, hey, don't buy oil from Russia. First of all, we invested $17 billion. We own several oil wells there, including 20% stake in Sakhalin-1. And by the way, you know who took us to Russia? Russia was not on our map in terms of investment. Americans did that. They did that. They came here and they said, hey, we are investing in a project called Sakhalin-1, a big offshore, very, very attractive. Come along with us. We want to call it Indo-American joint venture. in Russia. That was a very good idea. The man who was heading the team, his name was Rex Tillerson, who went down to be the Secretary of State under Trump. Now the same US. They only actually took us there. So that's energy geopolitics for you. Now Trump wants to attack Iran. For what? For love of Iran? No. For energy. Because Iran is hugely blessed. They want to say regime change. Regime change for what? So that's the story. That's energy for you. Now, if you before I come to Professor Chatterjee, if you look at the whole scenario as this thing, for us, our challenge is on the one hand to mobilize affordable energy for 1.4 billion people. At the same time, since we are an important country in the global south, many countries look upon us to help them also to find a solution. Solution in terms of energy, security. So we also have to think and look beyond our own interests. For instance, country called Mauritius, country called Nepal, country called Sri Lanka, they're hugely dependent on us for their energy security. Sometimes we sacrifice our own interests and provide them whatever they need. We do that quite often. And even subsidize in many cases. Being a large country, and there are certain responsibilities on us. So that's very complex. So if any one of you in the room, if your interests are kind of like that, you're interested in many verticals. If your interest is politics, if you're interested in geopolitics, you're interested in economics, you're interested in technology, you're interested in power, you're interested in poverty, you're interested in security, that sector basically you should look at carefully is energy. You have everything. It's a fantastic Bollywood mix. It has everything. If practically everything you're looking for. So Professor Chatterjee, looking at this scenario now, Ambassador Talmiz Ahmed, and I agree with him. He said energy security, energy independence is a political slogan. Azadi, Swatantrata, energy ki be a political slogan. But is energy 90% politics anyway?
Yeah, in a big measure, I suppose, yes. So let me just take the discussion in a direction that neither of us have taken so far. And in the 21st century, this is emerging as a major point of discussion. From the early years of the 21st century, there was this concern about pollution worldwide, the extent to which hydrocarbons are adding to the problem, and whether we should shift to renewables. Initially, India's response was always that, well, actually, because we don't have any renewables, you are asking us to do it so that we become dependent on you entirely technologically, so we are not very keen. And there is that element of politics in that for certain, because if you are going to look for state-of-the-art renewable energy technology, how to tap it, how to explore it, how to mobilize it, you will end up depending on the Western purveyors of the same technologies. There is, however, the other point, which is that if I don't think you will have that problem in Hebrew. But if you go to Calcutta, if you go to Bombay, you go to Delhi, please carry an oxygen cylinder with you. You need it to breathe. The air over there is poison. And a part of it is because of this craze for real estate development that is going on. But the thing that is perennially adding to the mix is your vehicular pollution. And you need to look for renewables. Now it's very difficult to actually sort of drive a clean car unless you build a nuclear reactor and somehow get you to fuel that car. You will still be needing this dependence on oil, petroleum, what have you. There is, of course, this other problem that as Mr. Taneja had begun by saying, and Mr. Ambassador Ahmed also reinforced, that our dependence on coal is very high. And because our grade of coal is now deteriorating, could we shift to renewables? Right now, the government of India has been very clear that we cannot do that without sacrificing the pace of our economic development. Probably, therefore, we will do it over a longer period of time. Be warned, that means your health is compromised. Your lungs are compromised. You might be rich enough to afford a ventilator, but you will be sick enough to need a ventilator. Right? So that is something you need to be concerned about. The countries that have polluted the world so far have been telling us about this, and the country that is second in the list of the great polluters, China, is actually setting a shining example. China is investing in its renewables in a way which is bigger than the rest of the 10 large polluters combined. Solar technology, China is the world leader. We have far greater access to sunshine, in India, winter is only notional except in the north, right? So we could try and explore those. I would say it is the politics of Indian development that has not actually encouraged a shift in that direction. So that is a good thing to keep in mind, that there are strategies that we have adopted, they have worked, but what has worked in the 1940s should not be expected to work in the 1980s, that which has worked in the 1980s should not be expected to work in 2020. Technology is changing, your technology frontier moves, you move with it. And our need is actually to move faster than we are moving. So in terms of energy security, we are actually, in some cases, we have done exceptionally good things. Harnessing the power of methane, biogas, those kind of things. We are doing good. We should do better. Okay, it is an investment in our health, right? Which is unfortunately something that is not always discussed very readily. It's not sexy enough, but it's important. Similarly, when it comes to our dealing with let's say the madman in White House, what do you think happens if we do not listen to the United States? They will slash our advantages that we have. They will slam tariffs on us. They did on China. You know what China did? China simply moved away the destination of its finished products. Export elsewhere. America won't buy, someone else would. We have a solid leverage when it comes to Russian oil. You see, apart from the fact that we have invested at American behest, there is also the point that if, let us say, India stops buying from Russia, where do we get that volume of oil without spiking the price of oil in the global market? You think America wouldn't understand that? America pushes you, push back. That's what diplomacy is all about. But as I suppose Ambassador Ahmad and Mr. Teneja would be willing to accept that is where politics has taken over diplomacy. And that is probably the sad point.
Interesting point. You see, basically what Professor Chatterjee is referring to is big debate going all the world over is energy transition. Means transitioning away from fossil fuels to renewable energy. That's the debate. It's an old debate. The political component of this debate is 99%. Biden talked about renewables all the way, was armed to twist many countries and to fall in line to his political agenda, but the agenda was basically strategic and there was nothing green in that. It was all red. That's what he wanted. They were just using the green energy debate in order to hold on to their, position as world superpower policeman. Trump came, talked about drill, baby, drill, and changed it completely. But the agenda remains the same. That's unfortunately the story. So energy transition is nothing is happening. If you those from Calcutta would recall from all earlier trains used to run actually using wood, then came coal, then came diesel, and now electricity. So energy transition has been happening, for very, very long time. Globally today, even today, 89% energy is coming from fossil fuel. 89%. It's only 11% energy that's coming from the green or renewable energy. Only 11%. It's only moved to double digit only last 8 months ago. So the world is still fossil fuel economy. For us, the challenge is India in terms of renewable energy, particularly social, we have done better than any developed country. We are a global leader today in terms of renewable energy. Yet our consumption for fossil fuel, particularly oil, is growing. We are demanding, when you look at the incremental growth, demand growth of oil, we are actually leading it. If we go off, oil markets actually get very troubled. And my own sense is we have to be realistic in life. What should be our agenda in terms of energy transition, in terms of energy security, in terms of energy access, in terms of, all these things? I think it has to be driven only by one thing, that's our own national agenda, and that's security. So security must come first, national security, and that includes energy. I think we have to grow. People like us sitting in this comfortable room, air conditioner and lovely room, and having discussion over a cup of tea. I just had a lavish lunch. We are part of the 10% very privileged Indians. 90% Indians. For instance, I live in Delhi, the gas chamber. I have no plan to move from there. I can go and afford to live anywhere in the world. But I'm not going to move. I'm ready to pay the price because I know that 90% Indians living in Delhi, my fellow Delhiites, they don't have that option which I have. I am today what I am thanks to them. They've also contributed to my well-being, my prosperity. So economic growth has to come first. I'm sorry, but economic growth has to come first. If some of us need to sacrifice for that, let that be a kind of, a mission. I'm not saying that we compromise with our health, but we cannot afford to compromise with the economic health of the country. My own sense is analysis, I'm ready to sit down with anyone point by point. We have got only 15 years to make India economically strong. If we don't get there in 15 years, we will have no option but to accept to be subservient to another country which is going to be number one in the world anyway. Are you ready for that? I'm not. So economic growth, I want my economy to grow at 9%. And my own projections, OPEX projection, International Energy Agency projections, and recent report from British Petroleum, I'm not saying they go out of the right value, no, but there are data. We are going to consume, today we consume 5.7 billion barrels of oil every day, out of which 5 million barrels we import. And in time to come, that's about 15 years from now, we will be consuming 9 million barrels of oil per day. We'll also be a global leader, continue to be a global energy leader in renewable energy. But if you have to get there as a nation, strong economy, eradicate poverty, we need more fossil fuel, we need more oil. We're going to consume 9 million barrels every day. Not that we want it, not that we like it, but do we have an option? People like me, prosperous, Ambassador Ahmed, Provis Chatterjee, take this call and leave these 1 billion Indians behind. That won't be a smart thing to do. America wants us to do that. Western Europe wants us to do that. No, not acceptable to us. If that means that I might die 10 years sooner, it's okay. But the economy must progress. So there's some compromise, a national compromise. I'm not saying pollution is good, but growth has to happen. We have to incentivize. It's not a kind of statement many people are going to say, are you idiot? How can you talk like this? But what is the option? If you have an option, please put that option on the table to me, and I'm happy to accept it, and I'm going to work for it. So these are the hard choices we have to make, unfortunately. For us, our top priority has to be 9% growth rate. We have to become a $30 trillion economy. In 15 years, if we are not $17 trillion economy, we will have no option but to submit ourselves as being subservient to a country we don't want to be subservient to. Are you ready for that? It's not the color of the skin that you're white, I have a problem, but if you're yellow, it's okay. No, I don't want to be subservient to any country. I'm India. Not acceptable to us. So that's the point. Now, we have just very limited time left, but I'll just take with the permission of the organizer 5 minutes. Floor is open. If you have any question, be as brief as possible. And I request my co-panelists also to not take more than 30 seconds each to answer the question. Please. No, don't disappoint me. I'm sure you have questions. Don't hesitate.
First of all, very warm afternoon to the esteemed dignitaries and all of you present here. Myself, Rishita Barbhai from the Department of Economics. So, I think in India held the G20 summit, not more than 2 years, I suppose, 2023 in September. There they claimed green leadership of the global south. So, my question is that in the geopolitical volatile world, how India's heavy oil import reliance will undermine this claim. So that is my question.
Well, I'll invite Ambassador Anand, but one thing, you see, when we say green leadership, we are already doing that. We are, in terms of global south, we are actually the green leadership. Look at the kind of, installed capacity today of solar and, wind. And we are also moving heavily into other directions. We are a global leader in terms of clean energy, but it does not mean that we compromise with the growth. It does not mean that you can't be a leader if you're weak. Important thing to remember. Quickly, 30 seconds, please. G20 summit, we talked about India leading kind of the green energy movement, that being leader of the global south in terms of green energy. But yet our dependence on oil is only growing.
I want to clarify to you, this word here, conundrum. Conundrum means something very confusing, not clear. And that is the scenario with regard to energy. Why is it a conundrum? It is because all the countries of the world, almost all countries of the world, have declared publicly their target the target year when they will have net zero carbon emission. Net zero carbon emission. So some have said 2050, some have said 2060, India has said 2070. That's about 45 years from now. I want to make it clear to you, if you read the literature relating to energy, you will find that at least up to 2050, that's from 25 years from now, it is a fossil fuel future. All the statements that you have heard anywhere in the world have no relation with reality. It's a fossil fuel future, particularly with regard to Asia. Asia, India, China, and many other countries are looking at fossil fuels. Fossil fuels are coal, oil, and gas. They will also make progress with regard to green transition fuels for green transition. But the progress will be slow and uncertain. When India announced 2070 as the target for net zero, the Prime Minister also made it clear this will not come free. It requires very, very heavy investment. From the day of our announcement 2021 till 2070, 50 years, we are looking at an investment of more than $1 trillion. The amounts are not available. So what we are going to have, because we already have the infrastructure for conventional energy, we will continue to use conventional energy for the time being. This has nothing to do with our leadership of the Global South. Global South, we are a natural leader there. We were a leader as part of, in those days we didn't call it Global South, we called it the non-aligned movement. We never said we are leaders, others said we are. So similarly for the Global South, given our size and our heritage and our economy, which is so substantial, etc., We are already at the apex of that movement. It is more a kind of, it is not an alliance, it's an alignment. People of the similar interests coming together to work together. But yes, it is going to be fossil fuel future. The bulk of our resources will come from the Gulf. All the projections indicate that. So there will be a very substantial symbiotic relationship between India and the Gulf with regard to these conventional fuels. Having said this, we will also be partners in the green transition because they have no other source of revenue. They need to sell hydrocarbons if they are able to fund the green transition at home. That is their policy, and that's what we are going to do.
There was one more hand this side. Yeah, please. Yeah. Identify yourself and you could.
My name is Rustam. I'm a student here in this university. Thank you for such an intellectual stimulating session, I would say. So I just had two questions. I mean, this wholesale imposition of this clean energy debate on the global south by the global north, how fair is it? And why did the global south have to accept this debate, had to accept this? And how is the global south really navigating this transition? And the second question that I had is, in making this transition to the clean energy, which sectors, communities, and which regions in India are being affected by it? I mean, I see it in Dibrugarh. I see a huge demand for electricity. You see the Northeast frontier with they're electrifying it, and you also see the demand for EV vehicles. And at the same time, I see lots of dams built around this region. So all of this is coming at a cost. So my question is to address some of the dilemmas on this front.
Look, I'll invite Professor Chatterjee, but just quickly on this. Look, there are one things that these communiques and releases come out of big summits and conferences that my participants are told. These are 90% politics. We have to keep that in mind. The fact is, as I said, that we need to give lip service to the green movement. Please do that. Even Saudi Arabia does it, Russia does it. And they're big producers of fossil fuel, as you know it. So to be connected, to be a good boy in the global community, do that. But at the same time, do whatever necessary for your own progress. So these are the war of narratives. What you're referring to, these war of narratives. If you are not strong, they will come and arm twist you. When Paris Agreement was happening, climate deal was signed, Obama was president. There was 16 to 17 African Latin America, global South countries, they were refusing to sign. And within 30 minutes, they all agreed to sign. Half of these can agree to sign because America paid to maintain their missions at the United Nations. They said, we'll stop it. They said, oh, okay, we'll sign. That's the real world. Real world is no different than the world that you see in your mohalla. It's the same. Only the names are different. So you have to be powerful, economically, militarily. That's the only way. And you have to be united as a nation, as a country. You're not, you'll be in trouble. So that's the real world. The only difference is when they do that, when they arm race, use muscle in United Nations security, the rooms are better, their dresses are better, ties are shining, language is sophisticated, but there is no difference the kind of gundagardi you see in your mohalla and what happens in the United Nations. Sorry, but that's how the world functions. Professor.
But do recall that the Americans have now withdrawn from that same commitment that they had made at that.
Exactly.
Yeah, so now that you've had a glimpse of the real world, and if it hasn't made you go altogether cynical, which it should, I'll just put this across in this way, that clean energy, the problem with clean energy is that it is expensive. And the non-renewables are much cheaper. That's because they have been produced over a very large scale. So the economy of scale is in favor of conventional sources of energy. Clean energy's price matrix would change when that also begins to enjoy the economy of scale. So whenever something new comes, it is very expensive. People go after Apple products before because they're expensive. When the prices go down, they go for the next expensive product, right? So when the demand increases, supply increases. If you're a student of economics, you will figure it out that this will automatically come. So till such point of time that clean energy becomes economically sustainable, it requires a little push. And that is the push that Mr. Tavita was saying. Is it essentially political? But at some point this starts. There was a time when horse-drawn carriages were more economical than internal combustion engine. And then automobiles become more economical and horse-drawn carriages are no longer. It takes time. Transition is essentially a time-bound phenomenon. It takes place over time. It doesn't happen overnight. Some people will keep at it. These will keep bringing prices down. Till then, you continue polluting. But once the pollution becomes a little more costly for you as an individual consumer, maybe then you will choose to swing the other way. So hold on to that cynicism, but also keep on with that hope, if not idealism.
Well, to conclude, the two, very briefly, I was in Shanghai recently, and you see a lot of electric vehicles there. So I asked an expert on energy there, yeah, you guys are doing a great job. You have so many EVs, electric vehicles, well done. And this guy knows the sector very well, knows the government inside out. He said, these are coal-fired electric vehicles. Electricity is coming from coal only. These vehicles are, so where the electricity is coming from in China? Coal. That's the story. But China has learned one thing, how to build narratives that sells well. We have yet to learn. Though we created some of the best narratives in the world in the ancient past, but that's history. I was at Munich Security Conference just 3 days back, and I was part of a discussion with some of the top ministers there. And I was telling my friends from Europe, I said, you see, you've enjoyed good cheese and wine for too long. Now soil your hand and feet. Get back to manufacturing. That's the only way you can actually, what Europe did, they outsourced energy to Russia. They outsourced manufacturing to China and outsourced security to America. And the last 50, 60 years, all they did was enjoy these cheese and wine. It's, of course, a later, way. But that's not what we do. I disagree with Trump 100%, but I agree with him only on one point. When he talk of make America great again, basically what he's trying to do, saying? He said, bring manufacturing back to the US. Bring manufacturing back, because that's the only way you can strengthen your country. Doesn't matter what the color of the fuel, green, red, brown, whatever. Europe should do the same. And in India, we'll get there when we will also be like green popes, talk about the world, green birds, peacock, beautiful songs. We're not there yet. We're not there yet. Our generation, and for you guys also for next 20 years, do whatever necessary to strengthen India's manufacturing, India's economy. Your part of India, eastern parts, is still need to grow fast. And you can't do that without energy. So don't look at the color of energy. Do best you can in order to have to move in the direction of green energy. But what is important is industrialize, create more jobs, make India a great economy. And my own sense is for next 20 years, we cannot afford this luxury of the color of energy. I want energy for India, irrespective of the color of it. If the color is green, I love it. If the color is not green, I'll still love it. So this is the way forward. To all of you, be realistic in life. When you travel around the world, represent India, speak for India, what they are doing, wonderful. But these narratives set by Western country, Western world, green, 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 don't buy it. Do what is good for your country. And thanks to each one of you. And I want you to join in giving a big applause. Thanks to my co-panelists and my panel and professors. And good luck to each one of you. And Nice having this interaction. I hope to see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Say only nice things. That's a joke.
So as we come to the conclusion of this session, I would like to thank our esteemed guests and also the participants for having this wonderful session, and hope we all enjoy the rest of the festival. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.